Welcome to Home Education Matters, the weekly podcast supporting you on your home education journey. Hello and welcome to another episode of Home Education Matters, and today is our fourth and final episode in our series Sharing Our Successes, our little mini-series where we've been following home-educated children who tell us all about the amazing ways that they are changing the world around them and just generally being thoroughly good eggs. And today I'm joined by Naomi John O, and she is going to be telling us a little bit about her home education journey and about the difference that she's making to the world, which is fairly substantial from what I can tell. So first of all, Naomi, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. And do tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your home education journey.
Okay, so hello, I'm Naomi John O. I'm 16 years old in year 11, and I started homeschooling in year 8, so in the beginning of year 8. My homeschooling journey has been very interesting because I started homeschooling during COVID, and the lockdown, and I say it was very beneficial for me, being taken out to the school system when it was going through a rough time. And I've now been able to obtain 7 to 8s in Spanish, maths, chemistry, and physics. So 7 to 9, sorry, in those subjects, and doing it in year 9 and year 10. And I'd say that's a very nice opportunity, a very amazing opportunity that homeschooling has given me.
Yeah, the ability to be able to spread your GCSEs out, start them early and get a few under your belt when you're sort of year 9, right, can really help.
Yes. And I don't think it's really an opportunity that's explored in like main school. And that's another reason why I feel like I gained a lot from homeschooling as well.
Yeah, I was wondering actually the other day, I was wondering why schools don't do this, why schools don't stagger GCSEs. And it occurred to me that what you would get, of course, if they did that, is you would get a lot of children who were, say, in year 11, who had already sat half their GCSEs, and then what would they be doing for the other for the other half of their time in school? They would have to entertain them somehow, which of course brings you back to the idea that schools are less about education and more about warehousing of children. Do you have an opinion? Do you have a controversial opinion on school, or is it just me that has these controversial opinions on school?
Well, if I'm completely honest, the school that I went to wanted me to do my Spanish and maths GCSE early. However, they wanted me to do foundation in year 9. So I was like, what's the point of doing foundation when I can do higher? So that's when I decided that in year 9 as well. So I think schools can see talent, but I feel like they're restrained against doing it as well because in secondary school you can't really have 3 periods and you've already sat your exams.
Yeah, exactly. They'd have children sort of sitting around in the library causing trouble. So actually, your school would have put you in for foundation maths in year 9, and then I'm guessing higher tier maths in year 11 as usual, right? So they just spread it
Yes.
out. Yeah,
And it
that's
was the
silly.
same
What
with
would be the
Spanish.
point? Yeah, I mean, what's the point of having foundation Spanish and higher Spanish and foundation maths and higher maths when you could just have higher maths? That seems really weird to me.
Yes, because I think if you get a 5 in foundation maths and versus you get, let's say I even got a 5 in higher, which I didn't, but let's say I did, that getting a 5 in higher maths would be, more than in foundation. So I feel like at being homeschooled, I was able to exploit my talents more. And also even then away from academics as well. Like even if like when it comes to extracurricular activities, homeschooling helps you organize time for that as well. For example, many of people I know, they're very good at acting or sports. And because they're homeschooled, for example, Simone Biles, she was homeschooled and now she's a very successful gymnast. And I think homeschooling allows time to focus on what you're good at specifically. So for me, it was academics, but for other people, it could be dancing, it could be drawing, and homeschooling really gives time for all of this.
You're right. And actually, the very first episode that we did in this series was with a young home educated boy who was 14 at the time. And it was all about how homeschooling enabled him to follow his passions in a way that he wouldn't have had time for if he'd been in the school system.
Yeah, I do strongly agree with that, to be honest. Imagine you're in school from nine to some schools do three, some schools do four. The school I went to did 8 to 4. And then let's say someone was a very good athlete. We don't have as much time to spend doing your athletics if you went to a school from 8 to 4, 'cause that's most of your day gone. And also, I feel like when you're homeschooled, you're making your own schedules and you know what best suits you. And it's been scientifically proven as well that teenagers, their brain works where like they're supposed to wake up past 8, go to bed past 11. It's been scientifically proven. And conforming children to go to school at 8 o'clock in the morning is kind of just setting their brain backwards. Because even me personally, I think I work best at later hours. So then it'll be quite hard for me to then wake up so early to go to school and then come back home and then do work at that time when I probably would have been sleep deprived. I think a lot of people would agree with me on this as well.
I think a lot of teenagers would agree with you for certain, because I know that my two who are a similar kind of age to you, they do not do much before about 10 a.m. They may be awake, but they're not doing a lot sort of with their brain. And whereas my son, I think I mentioned that he's doing his A levels, and I said to him yesterday, "Oh, you're having a day off?" And he said, "No, I'm working this afternoon." And this was at about 4:30. And I said, "Well, this is this afternoon." He said, "No, by this afternoon, I mean 5 o'clock." And he works from 5 p.m. through to 8 p.m. because that's when his brain feels kind of alert. Now, you just can't have that option when you're in school. You have to fit in with the timetable of the school, don't you?
Yes, and that could put a lot of pressure on a child. Like, for example, when I used to go to school, I'd always be stressed because that my brain would really focus on my homework at 11 p.m. and afterwards, and then I knew I'd have to wake up so early the next morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get this, I have to get this done. So I used to be rushing my homework last minute. And it was very, very stressful. But now at least I know that I can clock my work to the way my brain works. And that has alleviated a lot of stress for me.
Yeah, and I think that what you're talking about there, that freedom and the flexibility to sort of choose what you do when you do it and organize your time, not only has the benefit of it's good for you, it's enjoyable, it's a nicer way to do it, but also it's teaching you a lot of really valuable skills for when you're older because you're learning how to manage your own workload and how to prioritize things in your life, right?
Yeah, I can say that because when you are homeschooled, you are making your own schedule. And when you go out into the real world, your school's not going to be making your schedule for you. Your workplace is not going to make your schedule for you. I mean, they may, you know, like dabble a bit with it, like tell you when you can have your breaks, but they're going to expect you to organize your work yourself. So homeschooling really, it reduces that habit of being able to organize your time very well.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying as well about being able to have more time to do the things that matter to you, the things that resonate with you as a person. And that really came across when I looked at your website, because it's clear from your website that not only are you doing tutoring, but you also have sort of, for somebody who's only 16, you have a very solid history of charity work as well, right?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, so when I was about 7 years old, I really took a lot of care into the people in destitute areas in um Africa, specifically Nigeria, as that's my home country. And so me and my sister and I, we made Share Care Smile, and we got together clothes and food to send to the children, and well, not just children, the families in the villages in Nigeria. And ever since then, I've just really had a passion for helping those in need because at the end of the day, if we really think about it, not just Nigeria, but Nigeria included, really made up the world that we're living in today. And instead of just taking, I think we should really give back to them as well.
So tell our listeners a little bit about the different ways that over the years you have become involved in these kind of social projects.
Okay, so I said what I did at 7. in I think I was year 5. I this is more, British, so it wasn't really, but I raised money for a hospital in Bristol, I'd say, but I think it wouldn't be very familiar to most people. It was in North Somerset, and it was for a scanner to help improve the healthcare to children. And then in when I was in year 7, I think I would have been 11. It was before my birthday. So when I was in year 7, I made Christmas cards. I remember I loved making them. It was so nice. I literally painted them myself. But I made Christmas cards for the children that were in King's Cross Hospital. Then more recently, I've been trying to tackle period poverty because the sustainment development goals. The sixth one is for like for everyone to have sanitary products, and that's one. I think that one's a very like it's talked about a lot, but I feel like it's not really tackled as much as it needs to be. I've been trying to tackle this, and I've been giving sanitary towels to girls and women in villages in Uganda and Nigeria. And just seeing those girls now I know it's not a permanent thing, but to know that I have temporarily um like helped these girls really make I hope to continue to do more things as well as I go further in life as well.
When you think about your future and your kind of the last 4 years that you've been being home educated, do you think that the experience of being home educated has given you not just more time to follow these interests, but also more of a sense of autonomy that you can do it? Because not many 16-year-olds, I think, can think, oh, I'm going to be a tutor, and oh, I'm going to, raise money, and I'm going to send period products to Africa. And I think they tend to, not necessarily have that sense that they can make these interventions in the world.
I feel like being homeschooled makes you feel like you have more time to do different things. But as like I said earlier, like if you're in school from 8 to 4, 8 to 3, 9 to 3, it takes up most of your day, and the rest of your evening is cramped doing homework. And I feel like that makes students feel like they haven't got much time. You still want to see your friends, still want to go out, you still want to at least have a bit of time to do things you enjoy. But when you're homeschooled, I feel like it helps you to see that there's so many hours in the day, and you can split your time to do different things. And I say that that's kind of been the same for me as well. Being homeschooled has helped me be able to organize my time better and be able to do different things during the week as well.
Okay, so as well as your desire to help different parts of the world and to make a difference in the world around you, you also, I know you do some tutoring. So do you want to talk us through what made you feel like that was a good fit for you?
Well, I am the oldest out of three. I'm also the oldest grandchild, so tutoring kind of comes naturally to me, as I've had to do it for quite a while for my siblings and cousins. So I was just like, hold on, because when let's say they came to me something they didn't really understand, and they leave and they understand it, so it's like, oh wait, I can actually tutor. And then I've done some of my GCSEs early, so it's like I have the results. So I thought, let me share my knowledge elsewhere and help others with their academics as well. Um, and I also did a free maths paper walkthrough before GCSE before GCSEs maths, and also I also did it for SATs as well, so year 6 SATs. And a lot of the children, they learn something from it as well, which I like to see. Because when I'm tutoring somebody, I don't really like when you come to me, you don't understand it, you leave, you don't understand it as well. So it's very nice when I can see that my teaching them has helped them gain knowledge and understand something they didn't before.
Yeah, it must be really rewarding. What do you think are the benefits of being tutored by somebody who's really close to you in age? Because it must be quite a different dynamic to being tutored by somebody who's sort of in their 30s or 40s.
I feel like when you're tutored by someone, like I'm trying to put myself in the perspective of my students, but I feel like it helps relate a bit more because when you're a child yourself, you know the thinking of a child. And when you're a child, when you're in a similar age group as well, you're going to understand the current curricula better because you've done it recently, if that makes sense. Like I feel I'm not saying that like if you are older, you're not going to be a good teacher. But I think that being a younger teacher does have a few does have some advantages as you like it's fresh in your brain how these exams work and you can relate to the child because that you're around a similar age and it helps you also understand different ways people learn.
Yeah, I can see that. And do you think that being from the same generation means that I don't know, you have more relational awareness. So, for example, you maybe are able to use analogies that they can understand better because it equates across to their own knowledge, or do you find that your understanding of tech or anything like that is better?
Oh, in that case, I'd say like being a similar age to my students does actually help. For example, one of my students, I like asking for feedback, and all my students said they like my methods of teaching, like how I use pictures and how I evaluate everything, because and stuff simple things like that. And I think when you're a similar age, you know everything that's going to go on in the backgrounds. You know all the distractions, and you know how most children of this generation think because that you are a child of like this generation. And it also means you know how they will be taught by others as well because technically when I was in school, I was also being taught by somebody else as well. Obviously, now that I'm homeschooled, I'm self-taught. But when I was in school, I was being taught. So you know how they get taught, you know what they're being taught, and you know how they they may want to be taught as well. And that's why I'd say like having being around a similar age also helps teach because that you can see it from their perspective. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and also I'm sure that there is a sense of equality as well, and this idea that maybe you're not sitting on high judging them if they get an answer wrong, because there's like a sense of comradeship, I'm guessing, because you're both similar age.
I say so, yeah. It's less like of a lecture and it's more of a a concept like let's learn instead of I'm teaching you, you better get this, if that makes sense. And I think it makes my students feel less pressured when they're hearing it from someone who's their own age. Because that it doesn't feel like it's someone who's gone on and had a PhD and is now looking down on them for just this GCSE question they're not understanding.
Yeah, I often I've had tutors for my children, and sometimes I think, my God, these maths tutors must get so bored of doing like really low level maths because it must be like, my God, I went to university and did my maths degree for this. But for you it feels like it's probably closer, closer in time to something that you've already learnt yourself. So you can remember how
Yeah,
difficult it was and how easy it was and things like that.
yeah. And like also when they'll ask me, oh, how many marks is this? I'll be like, yeah, so it's this many marks that I've done it recently. Or they'll be like, how relevant is this? Does this question come up often? And because I was preparing for my exams quite, recently, I can say, oh yeah, this comes up a lot. This comes up a lot. I know how the papers now are because that I've done it myself. And I'd say I've done it myself quite, like quite recently. And I'd say that as well helps me to give them insight into how it's going to be when they go as well.
Absolutely. So you've got these two passions in your life. Clearly you have a really strong social awareness, and also you have the pleasure and the enjoyment of tutoring other people. So do you have a sense? I know you're young and you haven't even gone to sixth form yet, but do you have a sense of what you might like to do in the future and what you might like to do as a career?
I aspire to be a neurosurgeon. So yeah, I'd operate on the brain. Um, Yeah, that's what I want to do, really. Yeah.
So just something low key like that, right? Being a neurosurgeon.
No, that's like my very strong passion. I wanted to do it for I wanted to do my whole life. No, I had a very, very long roller coaster of different jobs I wanted to do. But since year eight, I'd say that's now firmly I want to be a neurosurgeon. That's what I want to do. Yeah.
So so you're going to be aiming to go to university to do medicine.
Yes, definitely.
Well, blimey, that sounds sounds a wonderful thing to aspire to. The only my only knowledge of neurosurgery is from watching Grey's Anatomy because that has neurosurgeons in. So having watched lots of episodes of that, I feel like I could probably do neurosurgery. Actually, I've watched that many episodes of Grey's Anatomy. So before we finish today, I wondered whether you could tell us. I think I've asked this in almost all of these sharing our successes podcasts that I've done. Could you tell our listeners three words that you associate with your home education journey?
Three words.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of three good words. Enlightening, I'd say.
nice.
Enlightening, enriching. Oh, we're doing alliteration now.
I know you're going to have to think of another one with N now.
Oh, okay. N.
No, you don't have. No, you don't have to. No, it's too hard. It's too hard. Invigorating,
Um,
but that's with an I, so that doesn't count.
and can I say a word that's like kind of made of two, life-changing? I mean, technically you can say it's one word, but life-changing, yeah.
Life-changing, wonderful. That, I mean, I've never had that one used yet, and I think that's fabulous, fabulous. It makes me feel great that home education has been life-changing for you. So, for any of our listeners who are listening who think that you sound amazing and they would like to find out more about you, which I'm sure is most of them, do let us know where we can find you, whether you've got a website or any social media channels or anything like that that we can follow.
So my website is www.naomijohno.com and my Instagram is Naomi John O official.
Okay, Naomi
Yes.
John O official, and your website is Naomi John O. Okay,
Yeah.
fabulous. Although you say it nice, you say Naomi, right? And I'm saying Naomi. So
Yeah.
this is, yeah,
To be
Naomi. It's
honest,
nice.
it's Naomi, but everyone, so people just quote different things. I just leave it. I don't really know. Even
Everyone
even my
pronounces it
parents,
differently.
they call me differently. So it's just Naomi. I don't really mind.
Do you know, it's funny how you can have these phonetic names and everyone says them differently. My son is called Xavier, and so he gets called Xavier in America, and then he gets called Xavier in Spain, and it's only
It's very
actually
random.
in France that he ever gets it pronounced the way he pronounces it. So well, thank you so much, Naomi. It's been lovely having you on the podcast today, and I
Thank you
really
for
look forward to
having me.
following your progress as you become a neurosurgeon.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on this podcast as well. I hope I've been able to inspire many homeschooled or children that are still in school as well.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Home Education Matters podcast. See you at the next one. Have a lovely day.